It's time for the lore tours of DefenseCon 2952. Come on down to the floor for your tour. Welcome to the finale of our Invictus launch week lore tours with DefenseCon. My name is Paul Shelley, Paul Berserker 01 Batman Shelley. I am still, as always, your host for Captain's Table and your professor for Galactic Historian. And I'm going to tell you about the ships of Drake Interplanetary and the history behind the company itself. Before I do, though, I do want to thank all of you who've been joining us, brand new for the Star Citizen universe. A lot of new faces, a lot of new comments I've seen in my videos, even going back to my older videos and watching them. So I do thank you for watching them. If you have any questions, always leave some comments below. We also have a Discord, which should be linked in the description below as well if you want to ask more questions. And remember to subscribe, to like the video if you enjoyed it, and to spread this around to other people in your organizations or other Star Citizen fans you know who may not know that there is such extensive lore behind Star Citizen. I'm always interested in getting more people involved in this sort of thing. So thank you again. But without any further ado, let's get started with Drake Interplanetary. Well, to understand Drake Interplanetary and Drake DefenseCon, we have to understand about Magnus. Now, Magnus was first discovered in, I believe, 2499. There's my notes. 2499. It was not really well known much, but it wasn't really a well-known system. But by 2533, the Navy had made it their home, terraforming it and building many shipyards to build new ships. The UPE Navy building new ships for the fleet. And after the First Tavaran War, these fleet yards became larger and much more developed as the UEE came into full swing, and they needed many more ships for their growing navy. So Magnus was doing very well, but it was only the system itself and the planet of Berea, which is what we're talking about specifically, was only allowed to develop for the military. So in 2751, the Navy moved out of the system to the new home in Killian. But because Magnus had not been allowed to develop economically beyond its basic naval structure, the economy pretty much collapsed. The few companies that were there were eventually scared off, including Kruger Intergalactic. But in 2845, Jan Dredge and a series of other young, ambitious engineers entered a contest for the UEE. The UEE, at the time, was dealing with a very large territory they had to cover without nearly the kind of funding or coverage they needed to for the Navy, as well as a large war, large skirmishes going on with the Vanduul. So they wanted a ship that could, and I quote, be constructed rapidly and outfit home defense squadrons in times of need. Effectively, they wanted a cheap, easy to maintain, easy to build, and rugged ship that could be function on the frontiers for home defense forces, like, say, naval reserve squadrons, militias, or even the Navy in remote outposts. Something they could use for defense and for light cargo if they needed to. So Jan Dredge and her team entered what would become the Cutlass. But the Navy rejected it. Believing in their product, Jan Dredge and her team formed Drake Interplanetary, which was only named, it has no real, meaning behind it. It was named because it was smooth sounding. It was effectively named because it was hoping that it would be an appealing name for customers buying a ship from Drake Interplanetary, which is kind of how Drake runs. So after they formed their own company, Drake Interplanetary, they decided that they were going to make their home on Berea in Magnus. Why? Because it was cheap. They had many shipyards that were abandoned from the Navy, so they could easily buy up very cheap real estate and begin to build their cutlasses. Now, of course, Drake wouldn't really lean into this, or they wouldn't really explain this. They simply said that we're the bad boys on the block, because they hyped up the fact that the cutlass was the ship that was too dangerous for the Navy. Those sorts of things. They've leaned into being the rebel, the outlaw, the unwanted black sheep of humanity. And they've gotten a lot of purchases because of that. People like living who especially living on the fringe, like to believe that they're living on very, it's not extreme, but on the edges of society. So with this, they began to sell the cutlass to the UEE, and it did very well. Very well. Within the first couple of decades, Drake had been outselling Origin's Jumpworks and were competing against Anvil and even RSI head to head in many cases for their sales. And they just had the cutlass. Over time, they'd eventually expand their market, but there's a joke that every Drake ship is just the cutlass, but made differently and assembled differently or bigger. It's just a cutlass. All of their ships are just a cutlass, because in reality, a lot of their ships are built to be somewhere around a cutlass in terms of their utility. They often use cutlass parts. So a lot of the Drake's design language is different. Or is different, not different. It's the same because of the cutlass. They constantly entered UEE competitions, only to lose automatically because they would just enter the cutlass and keep losing, and would point to that being like, see, the Navy, we're too bad for the Navy. That's their style. It is exactly why people love Drake in the Star Citizen universe. They are just absolutely Drake. Problem was that the same things that made them very valuable to people on the frontier and to your average citizen also made them valuable for pirates, who found the easy to maintain, rugged, cheap to buy ships ideal for their own uses. And Drake soon became associated with pirates as much as being part of the rebel outlaw culture. This would come to a head in 2948, when a sting operation done by the Terra Gazette caught Jan Dredge admitting that they didn't care if they sold to pirates. And they ran an article with this soundbite, this footage and the soundbite, along with the statistics of just how many people die from cutlass attacks, piracy specific cutlass attacks. And it didn't really matter how much Drake had not officially said anything. The writing was on the wall. And in order to not get investigated further, Jan Dredge stepped down as CEO, putting her son in charge. And eventually, Andon Arden would take over in that same year, I believe. Yeah. The scandal happened in 2947. The next year, Andon Arden came on. Now, Andon Arden is a renowned fixer. He comes into companies in trouble and then rejuvenates their image and tries to make them, as well as to become more financially profitable. So Andon immediately greenlit a couple of different projects, which we'll talk about here. One big one was the Kraken. Another one is the Mule, which we'll talk about as well. Things that are not combat-based. They're most exclusively things that you'd see being used for civilian purposes. Well, I guess the Kraken's a little different, but it's a floating space station, so it goes to that. Today, Drake is very, very powerful, but they are never allowed to go to Invictus. Why? They have leaned into their bad boy reputation and have pissed off the Navy. And so the Navy doesn't buy Drake ships. Zero Drake ships are allowed in the Navy. As a result, Drake cannot go to Invictus. So in 2950, after many years of petitioning to go to Invictus celebrations, they said, we're going to make our own Invictus with blackjack and hookers. Drake DefenseCon, which they've been running every year for the last 2 years. Well, I guess last 3 years. To great success. So join me as I come and tell you a little bit more about some of these ships, including the second oldest ship in the Drake Interplanetary lineup, the Caterpillar. So, the Caterpillar was first made in 2871, and it is the first ship after the Cutlass to be built. Cutlass built over here, 2845, I believe, and this was built in 2871. Several years after the success of the Cutlass, they decided to build the Caterpillar. Now, the Caterpillar was, funny enough, used for legitimate commerce, extended search and rescue missions, but it's become very popular for other reasons as well. I kid you not, the lore says that this thing's used in search and rescue operations. I don't know how, but it is. Now, the thing that makes the Caterpillar interesting and unique is that, first of all, this right here is a ship. The command module itself, you'll see over here, is actually docked to the main fuselage here, and it can decouple. And this is not just a, you'd also see the landing gear right here, keep clear. That's a maneuvering thruster, and there's some other stuff around here as well. Some landing gear on the side. Yeah, landing gears on the side. Right there. So this is not just a command module with, it's just like a snub craft. No, it has a quantum and jump drive on top of it. This thing is a fully operational spaceship. It has plenty of range on it as well. The other thing that makes it unique is that each of these little sections, you'll see they're marked off by these landing gear, are modules. And Drake makes several different modules. We don't have the specifics on exactly ones yet, but all of them for various activities, extended operations for exploration. Most of these are just cargo on here, but they also have, they've talked about things like recreation modules, extended habitation modules, extended cooking modules and stuff like that, things for more kitchens and such. So Caterpillar owners can buy a Caterpillar for cargo and then turn it into whatever they want to in the long run, which is why it's became a very popular ship. It's actually one of the most popular. I want to say it's the second most popular in lore behind the whole series for cargo freight, because not only, unlike the whole series, it has an interior cargo bay space, which are pressurized and sealed, so you can carry a lot of different things compared to the whole series. These right here are also known as parking sensors. These parking sensors were also used for some somewhat nefarious. It's called the Kesserling incident. It happened in 2903, where a armored security ship was rammed by a Caterpillar with these parking sensors acting as a temporary docking. They opened up the front of the Caterpillar basically into the other ship, then boarded that, stole everything they could from that security ship, and then returned back to their Caterpillar and got into the cabin module, decoupled, and then got away. It is the Brinks security heist of the Star Citizen universe. And it was a Caterpillar that did it, which has got its kind of a bad reputation. It was originally known as the evil freelancer by many people, which is a little odd. I think that's probably changed just because it's a lot bigger than the freelancer now. But that's its sort of mentality. It's sort of a much more on the unlawful side of things. Now, with that, let's go back to the OG, the Cutlass Black. Now, originally it was just called the Drake Cutlass. The color designation came out afterwards because of how successful the Cutlass was. Kind of went over the history of it. It is designed as a remote militia security ship. It holds plenty of cargo. It actually has about half the cargo of a freelancer, but about the same size as a freelancer. So it's not bad considering how much more guns it has and how much cheaper it is. It also has gun racks. It has 2 beds, a turret, and a Rio seat and a regular pilot seat. And these side doors allow for easy entrance and exit as need be. Now, these side doors also offer easy EVA access for pirates when they're going to board something, and then easily to get back in, especially loading it in space, but it's a little different there. But it's also used extensively by security forces. Almost all security forces use the cutlass in many forms. Usually it's kind of a medium or heavy fighter or patrol ship, usually accompanied by other ships to kind of protect it a little bit. But they were incredibly popular and still incredibly popular today, which led to the creation of some offshoots. Because, as I've noted, they got a bad reputation as the Cutlass being a pirate ship, they built the Cutlass Red and the Cutlass Blue. The Cutlass Red was built as a search and rescue ship. Originally, the Cutlass Black was used extensively for search and rescue operations. This is the steel, it's not the red. It's just the red thing. Let's go over the red. Search and rescue operations with twin machine guns. Drake. Here we go. The red rescue. Yeah, so if you look inside here, I'll show you a little bit here. This is used as an ambulance. It has 2 grade 3 medical beds on board and has docking collars to be able to dock to other vessels as need be. So it can dock to a vessel in distress, enter and pull people out, get them to hospitals. They're probably the most common hospital or ambulance in the verse because of how cheap they are. They're still all of the advantages of a typical Cutlass. It has a little bit less cargo, but with medical beds. They also, at the same time, created the Cutlass Blue. The Cutlass Blue was explicitly used or explicitly made for security forces and bounty hunters, but security forces. And that's what these are right here. These are all cryopods. These pods, I think it holds up to 12 pods. You can hold a prisoner for an extended period of time in cryogenic suspension in these pods for quite a while. And it's easy to, you can see the kind of move them out and pull them around as need be. So they've become quite popular as security and militia and bounty hunters, I was thinking, bounty hunter forces or bounty hunter groups, because of this flexibility. It becomes kind of like a paddy wagon, as it were. What are they called? Modern day prisoner transport. Pretty effective for prisoner transport. And again, cheap Cutlass. All right, and over here we've got the Cutlass Steel. Now, there's not a lot of information, but I'm gathering based off of what I know about this that it's a fairly recent addition. There are many different drop ships which were made over the course of the last 200 years. And Drake, I assume, because they do this a lot, saw the market and said, we can turn a Cutlass into that. That's what they did. It's a Cutlass with 20 seats and 4 guns strapped to the side. Also, a gun on the top, the same turret, it's the more typical guns in the front, and a remote gun on the back. It is an upgunned, unarmored, I'm sorry, 4 guns on the 2 guns on either side and 1 gun on the back, plus another big gun on the back. It's a bus. It's a bus. It is dumb. It is absolutely unnecessary, and that's why I love this thing. It is the most Drake of Drake ships, next to the Mule. But, yeah, that's just that. All right, from there, let's talk a little bit more about the next one, the Herald. Now, I've already been over in another previous episode talking about the Herald and its, or not the Herald, but info running, and why info running exists in the Star Citizen universe. And just like any Drake ship, the Herald is a cheap effectively mini cutlass. You look at the cutlass, the front of the cutlass, and you look at this. This is a smaller kind of miniaturized cutlass. It's only got one gun on it. They take the engines from the back of the cutlass and they slap them onto a herald. Inside there's another seat for monitoring, because it's not just a info running ship. These are also the data systems, so they actually are all external, not internal. And you can manually release the whole pod from this system. But it's also a broadcast device. You can actually broadcast or intercept comms with it. So it has a little bit of E-war capabilities as well. But because it's made by Drake, it's very, very cheap, and it's incredibly fast. That is sort of the Drake motto. Make it cheap, put a lot of guns on it, or make it really fast in a straight line. All Drake ships are much faster than they should be, even the Caterpillar. But we don't know exactly when this was built, likely built sometime after the success of the Caterpillar and the Cutlass. I'm going to go over here and look at this. So I've said this many times, and I always get it wrong because I always proclaim that it's a cheaper version of the Gladius. And everyone points out that it's more expensive than the Gladius. I think even in verse, it's more expensive than the Gladius. The thing is that I don't think this ship is going to be as expensive as the Gladius in verse, but it is definitely built to be a competitor to the Gladius. It's the Gladius, but with more guns and faster. That's what the Buccaneer is. Now, the reality is the Buccaneer takes all of the aspects of, in terms of lore, is it took all the aspects of the Cutlass and turned it into a fighter rather than being more of a light cargo and fighter craft. This is a light fighter, pure fighter from the gate. And otherwise it has the same aesthetic, the same advantages of all Drake ships. It's cheap for them to make. It's very easy to maintain, and it's fast in a straight line. It has lots of guns. This ship was likely built specifically because the Herald needed support, because the Herald is the fastest ship in the game. Period. This is only a couple of meters per second slower. So it's obviously that this was designed with this in mind. That's the very beginning I said that all Drake ships are kind of built to work with one another. They're all cutlasses, but in different configurations. That's what I mean. All of these ships are designed to be in a fleet together and work together. And this man is floating again. Oh, he saw me, so the magic wore off. All right. With that, I'll finish it off with let's go with the mule, because I think the mule's next anyways. Let's go to the mule. The Drake Mule. Now, there is no lore behind the Drake Mule as it just came out, but the Drake Mule is designed with the Drake aesthetic at heart. You can see down here, it actually holds, I think those are spots for more boxes, so that would mean that you could hold, there's 4 slots in there, so 10 small boxes plus size 2 SEU, maybe 1 SEU. I think it's one SEU and then 1 SEU in the front. Drake is known for building ships and vehicles, because it's not just let's talk about the Dragonfly here in a moment, for the frontier. And that's what this really seems to be. This is built for the frontier, because if you need to move cargo a long distance without having access to ships, you want something that is rugged, that is fast, that can carry some load where you're going. And that's what the mule is designed to do. But we don't have a lot of lore on it, sadly. But we do know it was recent. It was just introduced at this DefenseCon, so it was built in 2952. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit more about the other ships here at DefenseCon. Aha! Here we go. So, shortly after the creation of the Drake Caterpillar, which was built again in 2871. About 10 years later, the Dragonfly was built. This was built specifically as a snub ship, and it was designed to work inside of Caterpillars and Cutlasses. The desire for this whole thing, and I'll read Jan Dredge's direct quote. As tried and true space pilot, you know the feeling of sheer acceleration, the incredible sensation of a mere suit separating you from a deadly vacuum. You know what performance is. You know that performance is what separates a job well done from a frozen death on a distant moon. And as a Drake customer, you're someone who understands that real life isn't about plush interiors or fancy sensor suites. It's rough and tough, and winning it means having to kick some ass. That's what the Drake Dragonfly is designed for. It is a snub ship. It is an accessory for both the cutlass and the caterpillar. It has two size 1 guns mounts on the front, and it can hold 2 passengers or 1 passenger and 1 unit of cargo. You also have these side baggage here for putting more cargo on this thing as well. It's often used for militias as scout vessels. They can be put into pretty much anything pretty easily and deployed fairly fast. They are incredibly fast for their size. Very few ships have as much, or snub ships or hovercraft like this, have as much firepower combined with speed as this one does. So it's the Drake Dragonfly. With that, let's look at the other ships here at DefenseCon, which are not quite out yet. Remember his name, because I always forget it. Andon Arden. This is, I like to call this at times Arden's Folly, because he comes in and literally the first thing he does is greenlight the Drake Kraken initiative. But it's important to understand the context. We live in a time period in 2952 that is unique in human history, like all time periods are. In 2952, the 3 major problems that are occurring is lack of defense on the frontier against pirates, serious war with the Vandul, and a lack of infrastructure. Most remote systems do not have the infrastructure to support large groups of people, nor do they have the infrastructure built or even the ability to build infrastructure that would support commerce or anything, really. So if a system in the middle of nowhere suddenly strikes it rich and they find a big deposit of some sort of mineral which is valuable to the UEE, that system is about to get bulldozed by large corporations. That is what the Kraken is designed to fix. This is designed to be a floating space station. It can also double as a carrier. It's considered a light carrier, so it can also focus as defense because of that other problem. Remote defense is a problem, as well as against the Vandul. So you need to have something to protect you, and that's what this is designed for. It's designed as a civilian ship. And yes, I know, I've had this conversation several times this week. This is not a military ship. This is a civilian ship. There are no Krakens in the Navy, as far as we know. It was also built fairly recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, and many of them haven't been deployed yet because they are being built still. And many of them are being built here on Crusader. Specifically, the Privateer is being built and customized by Cousin Crows on Crusader. So Crusader is actually working with Drake to build these ships, these large ships. It also makes sense. Drake doesn't really have the facilities to build ships of this size. So I wouldn't be surprised if all of them are being built by Crusader here in Crusader on Orison. So, wait, I forgot another one. Let's go. I scattered-brained at the end of Invictus, so I forgot the salvage vessel. Take a quick look through it so you can see, but this is the Drake Vulture. Now, the Drake Vulture actually has some lore behind it. Recently got a bunch of lore behind it. But effectively, it was built in 2938, only 14 years ago. And it was built for the same purpose that the Kraken was. There is no infrastructure out on the frontier. So Drake wanted to build a salvage vessel, a vessel that could salvage pretty easily, but could also help process some of this to use for construction. Drake's argument also stems from the fact that most of Drake's ships are built out of recycled scrap metal. Something like 98% of all of their materials are made from scrap. So that makes that this ship is also kind of a ship that works for them. Here, so I'll show you the interior cabin. It's a very small space. It's not very luxurious, but it has plenty of space for contents. It's got itself a nice little toilet, which is unusual for Drake. And it has a single bed. It's only designed for really one person. In the back here, you've got some ability to protect yourself with these weapons lockers, as well as a suit locker. And here at the front, you have the actual operation of the vehicle. Now, the purpose of this is to go out, strip things of their value, ships of their value, and then there's a processing plant that kind of processes some of this into its little cubes they could then use to sell as scrap metal. And here on the side, you can see. That's why Drake Interplanetary builds ships that not only provide function and power, find it. This is the door here. But provide peace of mind for you. There used to be a door here, but I don't think there is. No, it's not. Bad. I haven't been in here since they got released. So, but yeah, it's a fairly useful ship for those on the frontier who want to participate in salvage. Now we'll look at the very last ship, my favorite ship, other than the Cutlass, obviously, from Crusader, the Corsair. All right, the Corsair. Now, sadly, the Corsair is not got a lot of lore to it. It was likely built under Andon Arden, his new initiative. It is an exploration ship. An exploration ship. It has a lot of guns to it, though. And it's designed for long-range exploration, long-range missions in general. It has most of its size guns, I believe, are on the wings. Its big gun is on the wing here. But it has lots of turrets as well to support it, and some guns at the front as well. It has personalized quarters. It has a living area. It is almost like a mini version of a caterpillar with some extra wings to it. But it is a newer ship from Drake, and it's going to be coming out very soon. So hopefully get some more lore from behind it. But that is DefenseCon here in 2952, DefenseCon 2952. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you come on down, because here's another little secret. You can rent every single ship from the entirety of the manufacturers. Well, I guess all these manufacturers for Drake here. But you can also, in the future, use some of these very same portals to rent all of the ships from all of Invictus for the rest of the period here at Invictus, which ends on May 31st. So thank you all for joining me for DefenseCon. Thank you for watching all of these videos, because I know you. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you right now who are watching this. It's okay. You can turn away from what you're doing. You know, if you're falling asleep, just open your eyes for a few moments and listen in. I want to thank you personally for listening to my ramblings. Unscripted. I usually use some notes. And I do want to know your thoughts down below. Did you like this whole thing? Do you want to see me do this more in the future? Do you have suggestions for what I should do in the future in terms of more of this content? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe and like the video. And as always, remember, ex historia ad astra.